Hello again, everybody. This is the second part of my testimony. I left off where I said I got pregnant when I was 15, and I didn't know what to do. I lived in a town where abortion wasn't readily available to me. Had it been, that's what I would have done. Um, But I never told anyone I was pregnant until I was about 6 months. I got really depressed, and I used to pray every day and ask God to take this away from me. And I isolated even more away from the few friends that I had that I talked to at school. There was even one friend that, she commented and said, "What's going on with you? Like, you seem different. You don't seem like yourself." And I couldn't talk to her about it. And I ended up going away to live at a home for pregnant teenagers. The first place I went, because I didn't want my friends to know, I felt ashamed, like I knew I wasn't supposed to be having sex. Um, but I felt like a whore. I felt like my friends would judge me. And so I went. My mom, I finally told her, and she said she thought I was just filling out as a woman. And we got hooked up with the school guidance counselor, and I ended up going to live in a home for pregnant teenagers with a born-again Christian family. And I hated it. Like, I was a tomboy. I played with boys. I dressed like a boy. I acted like a boy. I didn't want to have anything to do with dresses or skirts or makeup. And this place I went to, like, we went to church all the time, and they were into creationism, and they made me wear a dress. And the first 2 weeks they didn't want you to call anyone, so you could just get acclimated. And as soon as I could call my mom, I called her and said, "I need to get out of here." And so as I was waiting for her to pick me up, like the next day or two later, the man of the house actually took me aside and talked to me about accepting Jesus as my Lord and Savior. And I grew up in the Catholic Church, and I didn't know anything about born-again Christians, and I was like, "Thank you, but I think I'm okay." And my mom came pick me up, and I ended up coming to a home for pregnant teenagers that wasn't religious, and I didn't have to wear a dress or go to church or anything. And I had my daughter, and I was planning to give her up for adoption, but I was going to be on a separate unit than where they keep the pregnant moms, so I didn't have to see children and that type of thing. And my mom, right after I gave birth to my daughter, she left me on the delivery table to go and look at the baby. And so the next day, I was thinking, like, how could I go through my whole life giving up my child and never seeing her, and my mom has seen her? So I decided that I wanted to see her. And I tell her now that she is the first person that made me believe in love at first sight, because even though when I went to see her, she like gave me a big poopy diaper, I just thought she was the cutest, most precious, beautiful thing ever. And so I changed my mind, and I decided to keep her. And I left high school because I was depressed still, and I didn't know how am I gonna enjoy school and feel part of school since I can't do sports and all these extracurricular academic activities I did. And my daughter was supposed to go to the daycare that was on campus, part of the vocational program, and like a couple days before I was supposed to go back, they said, "Well, we don't have space for your daughter." And I was just like, all right, that is probably the best thing, because I don't really want to go back to school. So I quit, and I got my GED a couple months later. And I continued to be depressed. I was smoking cigarettes all the time now. Like before, I used to smoke occasionally. But now that I was kind of an adult, since I had a kid, like my mom was letting me like buy cigarettes and smoke them in the house, and I started hanging out with a boy that I used to date in middle school. He was kind of like my high school sweetheart. We dated for a couple of years, and he started hanging out with my brother, and he had quit school and was all involved with drugs and following the Grateful Dead and doing LSD. And so he and I started dating again, and I got into LSD and drinking a lot and smoking weed, and I was still living at home with my mom. She was helping me, and by this time she had put out her alcoholic husband and divorced him, and so it was me, my brother, and my mom and my daughter. And I got this little job working a few hours in the evening cleaning businesses, banks, and other businesses, and I would go to work, and my mom would put my daughter to bed, and I would come home and wait for her to go to bed, and then I would sneak out at night and go hang out with my boyfriend and my other friends that I would do drugs with. And I started to go to church less and less, and just started to become darker and darker, and more depressed and isolated feeling. And I had another friend who had a little son about my same age as my daughter's, and she, when he was 9 months old, decided to give him up for adoption. And I remember kind of feeling envious because I felt like overwhelmed with being a parent at 16, and kind of wishing that I had made the other decision to give up my daughter. But the kind of person I am, I'm stubborn and prideful and willful. I would never admit that. And so, like I said, I was drinking a lot, I was using a lot of drugs, I was going to church less and less. I started reading this book about the Son of Sam murders, and that led to, kind of other readings about Satanism and Charlie Manson, and I started to even have thoughts of like, could I kill a person? Would I want to get involved with Satanists? Like, the allure of that was strong. Like, they were talking about how there were these satanic networks and people were powerful, and I wanted power. I didn't want to be abused anymore. I wanted money. I didn't want to be poor anymore. And so I started, like I said, having these thoughts like, could I kill someone? Could I be part of satanic cults, and at least have some people I felt like I connected with? I don't know. Sickness, really. The demons in my head, from drugs and alcohol and sexual abuse and physical abuse and emotional abuse and going to Catholic church. All those things, I didn't understand that then. I just, but at the same time I knew like killing was wrong, lying was wrong, cheating was wrong, stealing was wrong. But I had these thoughts coming in that I couldn't control. And so I was using LSD a lot at that point, and I had broken up with that boyfriend I mentioned. And, excuse me, I need some water. Excuse me. And I met up with this guy one night before work, and he told me he was a guy I used to buy drugs from, and he was married, and now he's getting a divorce, and he would always flirt with me when I would hang out at his house with his wife. But I would tell him, like, you're married, like, I'm not gonna mess with that. But now I saw him, and he was broken up with his wife, and he told me, oh, stop by and see me sometime. So that night, after I got out of work, I went to his house, and him and his friends were people that I knew also. They were hanging out and taking acid that night. So I took some acid and I went home and I waited for my mom to go to bed like I usually did. And then I went back and met with them and hung out at their house. And they were into heavy metal music, playing Metallica. And I remember getting up to use the bathroom, and it was a couple rooms away, and I went in the room and in the bathroom, and I thought I heard people at the door laughing at me and mocking me and saying scary, like, evil stuff about, like, hurting children and just doing, like, evil, murderous things. And I was almost afraid to leave the bathroom. And then I opened the door and no one was out there. And I went back in the other room and I was like, were you guys just in the kitchen? No, nobody was in there. And so I was kind of freaked out by that. And we're drinking and smoking weed, and I was, tripping. And then, like, next thing I know, I was in this black place with no lights whatsoever. I couldn't see anything, nothing. And I was communicating with what I now know were demons, and they were telling me, we care about you and you should join us, and you pray to God and He doesn't care about you, He doesn't answer your prayers, He doesn't love you, like, we'll love you, we'll take care of you. And I was thinking, like, I was talking to my friends that I was with, and that they were like some kind of satanic coven, and they were trying to get me to be a Satanist. And I was like, oh, I don't know, like, because on the one hand, I wanted love and power and money and things like that I felt like I was lacking. But at the same time, I knew stealing and lying and cheating and all kinds of things that Satanists do, that demons do, that evil people do was wrong. So I was conflicted. And finally, I was like, they were starting to convince me, like, we'll take care of you, we'll love you, you'll have everything you want and need, you'll be protected, we won't let anybody hurt you anymore. And I was just about to relent and give in, and I remembered my daughter. And I thought, no, it's my job to protect her from people and things like this. I can't do this. And, their response was, oh, come on, you can't change your mind now. You want to join us. You know it. Like, your daughter will be fine. And in my spirit, in my heart, I knew that, no, that isn't true. I mean, at that point, it was the 80s, and there was lots of things on talk shows like Oprah and stuff that were talking about ritual satanic abuse, and people were coming out of the closet saying they remembered all this satanic abuse. And I don't know if all those people were true or not, but I do believe some of that was true. And so I knew, like, if I give myself over to this power, these people, that's what's going to happen to my daughter, because she's going to be, that's not what I should do. I should protect her from stuff like this. So, they tried to tell me, you can't change your mind, and I was like, yeah, I can. I was, prideful, rebellious, girl. My mom raised me to be strong woman, and I was like, yeah, I can change my mind. But now I was like, how do I get out of here? I was in this deep, dark, black place. I, don't know what to do, and I heard say the Our Father. I know now that that was probably God speaking to me. So I started to say the Our Father, and bam, I was back in my body. It was like 3 hours later, even though it felt like only 15 or 20 minutes. And this guy friend of mine was on top of me. We were having sex, and he, says, like, he was like, what's going on? And he's like, oh, you've been saying all this crazy stuff and crying. And I was scared of him. I was like, what is he doing on top of me then if I was crying and saying crazy stuff? And I put my clothes on, and I stood up, and I was like, I need to go to the bathroom. And he said, well, go ahead. But I was afraid to even go out into his bathroom because of what happened earlier. And I just left there. And I'm going to take a break now to break this into another segment. Thanks, and may Jesus bless you.